Hello and welcome to another episode of No Ordinary Woman, where we recognise and celebrate women of all ages and all stages. And today joining me is Nerida Wynne Primus. Hi Nerida.
Hi Fiona, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Nerida has an extraordinary No Ordinary Woman story, like every other woman. Nerida has been such a survivor of so many different things in her life. She survived a very rare cancer. She was told that she wouldn't have a baby and was pregnant at 43 after being given about a 7% chance. She defied those odds. But this year has been particularly difficult in spite of those other difficulties she's faced with her son. After a few years with drugs and petty crime, has been charged of a very violent crime that has crescendoed and caused some major disruptions to Nerida's life in the middle of a global pandemic and all the other things happening this year. And so thank you, Nerida, for coming on and sharing that story with other women watching today.
You're welcome.
I really just wanted to ask you, when this happens, you know, you've raised this beautiful boy that you've raised with all of your values and have done the right thing. When something like this happens, what does a mum ask herself and process?
I think the key thing you start with is, did I do something wrong? Did I turn right when I should have turned left? Did I make some sort of error in judgment in something that I did? And I've tried to examine a lot of it, and you know, you do question what you've done, but I think I've come to the point of realizing that I did the best I could do. I was a single mum from day one with him, and we had a lot of support with my family. So he was always very close to both my parents. They were sort of like the other parent in the mix. So he had sort of three parents really, as opposed to just two, like most kids would have in a lot of ways. But I gave him everything I could give him. I tried to teach him right from wrong. I taught him, you know, all the normal things that a parent tries to instill in their children. And at the end of the day, you know, he made choices, and unfortunately, when drugs are in the mix, the brain doesn't work well, and consequences of what you're doing also are not thought of, are not considered. And no matter how much he loves you and wants to please you or whatever, unfortunately, when there's drugs in the mix, they often love the drugs more. And I always equate it to, you know, if you go on a diet and you say, okay, I'm not going to have chocolate biscuits anymore. You mean it when you say that, but then you go to somebody's house and they put some chocolate biscuits in front of you and you go, just one, you know. And so when he said, I don't want to do drugs anymore, you believe it. He doesn't want to do drugs anymore, but then he goes somewhere and it's put in front of him and the temptation is there. And, you know, just this once won't hurt, surely, you know. And so these sorts of things tend to be something that can happen, you know, along the way. And it just, you know, it is what it is. And you unfortunately, as much as he loved us and wanted to do the right thing, he was held captive, I suppose, by the drugs, and they made him make really bad choices.
And so apart from, you know, having to go through those feelings of what did I do, where did I go wrong, which I think every mother does, even when their child doesn't go down that sort of path. We all have that plague of, have I messed up? Have I done something wrong? And I used to just tell myself, I'm going to mess my kid up in my own special way. But you raised your child well, and at the beginning, once they hit adulthood, we can't make their choices for them. And no matter how good a job we did as a mother, they're going to start making their choices. But one thing about addiction, drugs, alcohol, gambling, and things like that is it does start off as a choice, but when addiction kicks in, it no longer becomes a choice. That you're actually controlled by the addiction, and it's very hard to judge somebody that is controlled by something like that. But I did want to ask you, and I know that other mums that have been through their kids going down that wrong path, were there any signs to you? Because I've heard other mothers like, I had no idea. How did I not know? Did you have any signs or inklings? Or
there were a few things in his teen years where he started to drift away a little bit. A couple of little things happened. There were some significant events that I think potentially pushed him in that direction and how he coped with them.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I didn't recognize it when he was in his late, 16, 17-year-old. When he then went to, at 18, he went to jail for a short period of time on remand, and for something else that he'd done. And he then went on to a rehab and did 9 months of rehab. And when he came out of rehab, he was not doing the drugs and everything, and he was just amazing.
It was your boy again.
He was doing so well, and he did well for probably about 18 months, and then gradually got back on the drugs again, and everything went pear-shaped again. So I could tell after he came out of rehab, I could see by the eyes or different things.
Because you knew what you were looking for.
Yes, but I never saw any violence when in his pre going to rehab years. There were walls kicked, there were doors kicked down, there was damage done to my car, things like that. A lot of physical violence around the house, of never being physically hurt, but stuff being broken. So there was quite a lot of aggression that he had in those early years. After doing rehab and he got back on the drugs, I never saw any aggression. Like, he came home from rehab, and we had one incident where my husband and he had a little altercation of something was said and it was misconstrued, and a fridge door was sort of slammed, and I said, okay, you go that way, you go that way, and calm down, both of you, and that was the only incident that I had. And it wasn't anything, there was no violence or anything like that. It was just voices being raised.
It was normal disruption.
And so I was really quite shocked when everything went down, because he had been so good. And at the end of last year, I started getting phone calls from the police because he was doing things in his car, and the car was registered in my name. So if he stole petrol, for example, or had stolen number plates on the car, I got the phone call. And so I started getting these calls. I was like, what's going on here? Because I'm not seeing any of this time. I could see it in his eyes if he was stoned or anything like that, but I couldn't. His behavior never got bad as far as aggressive like it did when he was younger. So that side of him was quite surprising, to have sort of a violent crime.
I think that's a good message that might make some other mums out there watching feel a little bit relieved. And because I know I've heard it before, like, how did I not notice? It's because I think they're really good at hiding it, because they don't want to be that person to their mum, and they don't want to put you through it. And I think people that have addictions are good at hiding it. So it's not that you haven't been paying attention, it's not that you have missed something, it's just that they're really good at hiding. And I just don't think that mums should hold themselves accountable for not seeing it coming, because it happens time and time again.
And since he's been on remand at the moment, he's sent me some letters, lots of letters, but I've had a couple of really special letters which have been him just writing so much about, it's not your fault, Mum, you raised me really well, you're the best one you could have been, and that was really nice to get that from him, and that these are my mistakes, I wish I could go back and change things, and I don't want you to blame yourself in any way, shape or form. So that's been really lovely to get that from him, because that sort of has been that, I needed to hear that from you,
Absolutely.
Having it in writing was even nicer than him just saying it on the phone, because you've got it there to go back and read. And
that would be nice. You just go back and reassure yourself.
Go back and read that letter and go, okay.
That's so lovely. And it's also good because that's him taking ownership for his own. And I think that's part of the biggest thing about recovery as well. But like, given that you had all of those incidences of, aggression and violence in the house, and just seeing him, because you've got other kids as well, how do you manage your feelings towards your own child? I mean, we know we're supposed to love our kids unconditionally, and it's usually the behaviors that we don't love, but what sort of mix of emotions did you feel towards him through those times?
Yeah, I think I certainly went through anger towards him, you know, because I was angry that he's put us in this position, that he depriving his younger brother of having a big brother to hang out with and things like that by being incarcerated. And that, you know, that does make me angry, and the things that I know that we're going to miss out on in the future potentially. Also, it's just, you know, birthdays and weddings and special occasions, those special occasions. And we did have Mother's Day this year, which was really lovely, and I got some beautiful photos with him on Mother's Day, and everything sort of went pear-shaped after that. So you know, it was it was, there's anger there, but I still deep down, like, you can't stop loving your own child. You know? And it doesn't matter what they've done, they're still your child. And so I can't not love him. Sure, I'm absolutely like flabbergasted at some of the things he's done over the years and disappointed in some of his choices, absolutely. But you know, your love for your child, you can't just turn that off. I don't believe I can't anyway. I can't turn that love off. He's my son and I'll always love him, and absolutely disappointed in his choices.
I think that's a really good message for other mothers that may have had kids that have, you know, gone through some difficult times, that it's okay to be angry at their actions and behaviors, and be disappointed and sad at the things that you've lost. I suppose there's like a grief and loss process that you go through over the loss of the child that you raised, and going through that maybe anger around the, you know, the impact it's having on the rest of your family, and that whole, this is not what I ordered when I had kids, you know, this is not what I planned.
You want the best for your kids, and you've got all these, you know, dreams that your children are going to go in this way or go that way or do this or do that. And you know, Blake was he was a good sports person. You know, he represented Victoria in baseball in his teenage years, and you know, so he had a lot of potential. And you know, it's that death that you're feeling. Like, I feel like it's a death in our family. It's a death of all these hopes and wonderful things that I thought he was going to do. And as I said to him, this doesn't define him, and it's not the end of his life or anything like that. And he can come back from this, and he can change it's all about his choices. He has to decide that this is what he wants moving forward. And I will be there to support him and encourage him all the way along. And just as a mum does, pray for him and hope, you know, and just trust that he will make some right decisions.
Come back. Absolutely. And it can't be easy. I mean, how do you manage your well-being and just keeping it together when you've got this part over here, but then a really good, you know, part of your life and family over here? How do you balance that?
It is an interesting juggling act at times, because there's, you know, I want to be able to go and visit him and things like that. And I got my first physical visit with him the other day, since the jails haven't had physical visits since March this year. So it was the first physical visit, and that was really nice to be able to actually see him in person for the first time in months. But you know, you still got to keep going for the family that you've got here. And I've got a 10-year-old son, so I need to, you know, I try to be strong. Mind you, he's fantastic, and he sees me get upset too, and he sees me and he just comes over and puts his arms around me and just, you know, he tells me he loves me and all this sort of stuff, which just helps as well. Because I think you've got to let your children see when things are hurting, because if you don't show that you're hurting, how do they show when they're hurting?
They don't know they're allowed to.
If you cover it, like, stiff upper lip and make sure I stay good and all this sort of thing, it's not real. And
totally agree.
So he has seen me just have days where I'm on the couch and crying my heart out and not getting very far, not functioning very well. And my husband's been amazing in doing washing and, you know, shopping and housework and all those sorts of things, because I just don't have the headspace to do a lot of that sort of stuff. And whilst I was homeschooling Denzel and, you know, everything else was going on with Blake, it was just trying to juggle that. And I've also got my 89-year-old father who lives with us, who's got some dementia going on as well, some Alzheimer's. So it's trying to balance all of that.
Yeah.
And we're stuck at home trying to work full time and homeschool. I mean, that in itself was a struggle without having Dad and Blake, you know. So it was like,
it's okay to rock backwards and forwards in the corner every now and then.
Yes, and I've had my moments like that, you know. So and it's okay to do that. I believe you've got to let yourself do that. And I've had lots of counselling to help me work through things. And support through my work and friends and family has been huge. We had lots of meals initially when everything went down. Number of weeks I didn't have to cook because people were just dropping meals around and visiting, and that was when we were allowed to visit people just before they stopped us letting. I was so pleased that we could have people over. I think it was when they first opened it up to let 5 people in your house, and I was like, thank goodness for that, you know.
I bet.
But because you just need.
And there is a support group for parents who have got children going through drugs and addictions that you have been part of. What are they called?
In the early stages, when Blake was in his probably about 16, 17 years of age, I went along for a good year or more. I did family drug support, and they have some short courses as well as a weekly support group. And the weekly support group basically is just everybody sits in a circle and you go around and you talk about what's been going on since we last met, you know, what's been going on in your world. And nobody gives advice. It's not about getting advice from each other and going, oh, you should do this or you should do that. It's just about offloading what you've been going through and hearing other people's stories and going, oh,
feeling normal.
Yeah, it's like, you're really normal and this is going on in your family. You look like a really nice family and it's happening too. And that's sort of like, okay, so it takes a bit of that stress off you. And they also teach you strategies of what you can and can't do. Because when it comes to drugs, your child has to get to the point, or your person, your loved person, whoever it is, it could be a spouse, it could be a child, it could be anybody. But that person has to get to the point where they say, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, because when they're using, they're happy using. They're called a happy user because they actually enjoy using. And they've got to get to the point where they're going, okay, there's a lot more bad than there is good. And when the scale starts tipping to that where they go, I'm over this. I'm just not doing this anymore. That's when they become ambivalent to it all. And then they go, right, they put the line in the sand. Until they do that, you
can't do anything. You've just
there's no point trying. There's no point trying to see if you can find something in their room or see if you can, you know, it doesn't work because all you do is you make things worse. You've just got to let it ride and let
their journey. It's their journey, and you're along for the ride. It would be so hard.
It's
just
very
hard.
hard.
And watch your child self-destruct. So we will leave a link to that support group in the comments below as well. So if you are a mum going through, or you know someone that's going through a difficult time and you just need that support, like Nerida said, it's okay to fall apart. It's okay to get help. It's okay to get counselling. It's okay to reach out to your friends. And it's okay to feel whatever it is that you're feeling whenever you're feeling it, because we have feelings for a reason. They help us process stuff. So, but Nerida, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And hopefully that has just helped some woman out there watching you going, exactly what you said about those other people. She looks normal. She looks okay. It's not just me. No, it's not just you. These decisions that our kids make are their own decisions. No matter how well you raise them, it's not a reflection on you as a parent. But thank you, Nerida. I'd love to have you back another time to talk about some of these other things that you've been through, because there's some pretty cool stories in your history. Would you like to come back?
Sure, I'd love to. That'd be great.
That is amazing. Well, thank you so much. There'll be some details below. And if you've got any questions about this, even if you wanted to ask Nerida some questions in the comments below, I'll pass them on to her and answer them back on her behalf as well. But thank you once again. And we look forward to seeing you all for another episode of No Ordinary Woman. Bye for now.
Bye.